The death of former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher has reignited a debate about just how effective her economic policies were. When Thatcher came into office in 1979, inflation in Great Britain hovered around 10%. She raised interest rates to lower inflation, and for most of her 11 years in office, inflation was in the 5% range. But when she left office in 1990, it returned to the 10% range. When it came to jobs, Thatcher inherited an unemployment rate nearly 5%. It quickly spiked and exceeded 10% for 6 years. However, she may be best known for being a champion of the free enterprise system. She privatized big state-owned industries, including the nation's utility companies and its national airline, British Airways. Government spending was cut way back to under 40% of the GDP, and the budget deficit was also brought under control. She's also well known for standing up to, and in some cases, breaking the influence of the British trade unions. We're now joined by John Browne, Senior Economic Consultant with Euro-Pacific Capital. He joins us from Boynton Beach, Florida. John was a member of Parliament with Margaret Thatcher and worked with her for 30 years. And John, Prime Minister David Cameron said earlier this week that Margaret Thatcher saved our country. Is that a fair assessment in your mind?
Absolutely. I mean, he saved it. When she took over in 1979, Britain was giggling its way into the ocean fast, and she pulled it back up. And of course, after that, all her policies were reversed, and we're now giggling our way into the ocean again.
How would you describe her? You knew her well. I've heard some people say that she had a strong compass. She knew where she was headed, very determined, demanding. How would you describe her?
Yes, she was very determined. She had real convictions, and she lived by them. She didn't suffer fools gladly. If you didn't know your facts, she was very dismissive. If you did, she was very supportive. And the fact was that most politicians talk the talk, but she walked the walk. And she delivered, and that was the key thing. She had convictions that were based on a single word for which millions of people have fought and died, was the basis of Magna Carta and the basics also of the Declaration of Independence, and that was freedom. She wanted to get the freedom for the British people, freedom from foreign aggression like the Falkland Islands, freedom from the abuse of the taxpayer, from the abuse of union power like the miners under King Scargill, freedom from monopolies like British Telecom and things like that, freedom from over-regulation, and to have competition, free competition within the country. In short, to get the government off the backs of the people and then allow the people to work. And that's what led to freedom and enterprise. And Britain really blossomed. It was very exciting. I remember the first day of the budget in 1979 when the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Geoffrey Howe, reduced the top rate of tax from 92% to 40%. I mean, there was gasps. Foreign exchange controls, he didn't just reduce them, they were abolished. And we were suddenly allowed to own a telephone. Before that, you had to rent it at about 1/3 of its value a year from British Telecom, a monopoly. So suddenly people were free to own their own telephones, which was amazing. And not only that, but she created the thing called Oftel to ensure that British Telecom, when the industry was privatized, didn't dominate all the bidding by underbidding because it had so much spare fat, and therefore incubating smaller companies and allowing smaller companies like Vodafone to take off.
But what about the complaint that she shredded the social safety net there, and that the taxes were cut, but that they went from the rich to the poor? The poor had to carry more of a burden.
Well, I mean, it's not really true. Actually, she played shy because she thought it was political suicide of cutting welfare. What happened was that there was a reduction in the rate of increase, but there were no cuts in welfare. And of course, for the people who were productive were rewarded. And therefore, by having less tax. I mean, to take 92% of someone's earnings was just staggering. And so people left the country or didn't bother to work. They didn't work hard, or they left for somewhere else, like Bahamas or Switzerland or America. So there was the brain drain. After Margaret Thatcher, these people came back and worked and started off new enterprises, creating employment. We've just heard from one of your previous contributors about the fall in the confidence of small business. It is small business that creates the jobs. and creates profitable jobs. When the government creates jobs, they're jobs that cost the country money, not reward the country with increased earnings. And Margaret Thatcher did that tremendously. I mean, she reduced the huge overheads of government-sponsored jobs which were not earning money to small business jobs that were creating money and wealth for the nation. It was very exciting, I mean, and inspiring. I mean, as a member of Parliament, one looked forward to going to work every single day under Margaret Thatcher.
John, we're just about out of time, but maybe in 30 seconds, can you tell us about her place in history? How's she going to be remembered? How will history look on her?
I think, Mike, you summed it up at the beginning. She was the savior of Britain. Winston Churchill saved us in war. She saved us in peacetime. And it was almost harder. I mean, she will certainly go down in my book, and I'm a Churchill fan, as equal to Winston Churchill. She saved Britain. Winston Churchill had a coalition government, and everyone knew they were fighting the enemy and all that sort of thing. Much harder in peacetime when you've got opposition and the press against you and things like that. They were vociferous against her, particularly to start with. And of course, at the beginning, like all training for sport or diet or anything, it's tough. And, you know, unemployment went up, as you said in the introduction, and sterling dropped to 112 and 104 on the intraday basis. It was very, very tough to begin with because there were cuts and things like that.
John, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, you're one of our biggest fans, and we appreciate talking to you.
It's a great pleasure.